Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute, but I am back here with a very fun video today. It's actually been 3 years since I started sharing my journey online about how I applied to college and ultimately ended up choosing to go to a state school, also a BSMD program. And I am back to tell you guys how I feel about that decision, how it's all gone down. Okay, so first I thought I'd start with some cons of going into a BSMD program. The first being that you might probably most likely be at that place for at least 7 to 8 years. I know some programs are a little bit shorter, but in general, you're gonna go in with the mindset that you're gonna be there for a while. And this isn't the case for everybody, but for some people that can be a little bit unmotivating. It can feel kind of like, oh my gosh, I have so many years left here, especially if you don't necessarily like the school that you're at. Some schools do offer the opportunity to apply out or apply to a different medical school, but sometimes there are risks associated with that. And so for a lot of people, for most people, you're going to be in that one place for a very long time, and that can be a little bit daunting. Now, this next one also isn't going to be relevant to everyone, but I think going into a BSMD program kind of makes you feel like you are locked into this profession from the moment that you confirm your acceptance and confirm that you're going to go there, which if you've known like since you were a little kid that all you want to do in life is pursue medicine and that's like your greatest calling and biggest passion, then that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think for some people who maybe weren't 100% sure about medicine, or maybe just like wanted to also be open to other things throughout college, it can feel a little bit like you're locked in, even though nobody's forcing you to attend medical school at the school that you were accepted into, but if you have that opportunity, it's very rare that you see students do other things just because you do have that wonderful opportunity, right? And so sometimes it can feel a little bit like your options are very limited from a young age when you might not necessarily even know exactly what you want for your future. Okay, and then the last downside I'm going to talk about is just kind of the lack of motivation that some of us experience going into a school that you're going to be at for 8 years. You have a seat in med school. Your future is kind of like made. Obviously, you still have to work hard, but you don't have to necessarily have the same kind of anxiety that a lot of other pre-med students have in college about whether or not they're going to get into med school or get into a top program. And for some people, that can cause them to become a little unmotivated. And when you aren't necessarily spending all of your undergraduate years working towards this far off but hopefully not so far off goal of getting into medical school, it can be easy to slack off a little bit, or at least feel like you have a reason to, in terms of like not necessarily taking the leap to apply to competitive research opportunities or internship experiences, clinical things, stuff like that you normally would invest a lot of time and energy into if you were trying to get into medical school. And obviously it doesn't have to be the case that you don't do those things if you're in a BSMD program, but I feel like it can be a little bit difficult to stay motivated and to keep staying on the grind. Okay, now moving on to the cons, which I'm much more excited to talk about. The first thing being the assurance of med school, obviously, which is just in this day and age truly priceless. I think going to college, seeing how hard people work to get into med school, it really is something that I'm so grateful for, to have a guaranteed seat. It also opens up the door for so many other things for you to do in college that you wouldn't necessarily be able to put time and energy into if all you were focusing on was getting your like 200 shadowing hours and your 100 volunteering hours and all of these research experiences and forming relationships with your teachers to get recommendations and all these things that you have to dedicate time and energy into when you are trying to apply to med school. That same time and energy can be dedicated into other things. You can be a little riskier with your undergraduate experience because your future, at least your near future, does not depend on your grades necessarily on your resume. So if you want to take that like super hard biochem class or like a really difficult theoretical math class just because you find it interesting or cool or fun, you can do that because you don't necessarily have to worry about the impact that it'll have on your GPA as much. Also, you can explore in terms of extracurriculars. You can take this opportunity to explore different things that you're interested in. Pretty much everything I did in college was somewhat outside the field of medicine, and I think it absolutely, enhanced my worldview, made me a better person, will hopefully help me in my future career. And so that, I think, is one of the most amazing things about already having a guaranteed medical school acceptance, is that you can really just have a lot more freedom in your undergraduate years. And it doesn't necessarily have to even be academic. I know people who spent their undergraduate years in my program really investing time into the sport that they love, or like the musical instrument that they love, or getting online and posting videos like this. So it can really just be anything. You just have a lot more freedom to do the things that make you feel like human and make you feel like a whole person, not just a pre-med student. And another thing I'll say is that being in a BSMD program on your campus might give you a little bit of clout. And I mean that just in the way that, when it comes to getting certain, for example, research or job opportunities on campus, it can help you, number one, with credibility, just knowing that you've been able to assure yourself this medical school seat, but also being able to say, I'm here, I'm going to be here for the next 7 to 8 years, that can really make somebody more willing to work with you, because they know you're going to be able to put a lot of time into their research lab or whatever it is that you might be trying to do. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I feel like being in a BSMD program gave me so much flexibility to explore fields outside of medicine, and also explore medicine in my own ways, in the parts of medicine that interest me, and instead of having to stick to this rigorous pre-med formula that you often do when you're trying to apply to med school. And so those are all important things to consider if you are thinking about going to a BSMD program, applying to a BSMD program, or if you're going to go to one starting in the fall and you just want to know what's coming for you. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I will see you later. Bye!